We are on chapter 3. That night, for the first time, we ate our dinner around a campfire. Mother brought out the good baked chicken that John's mother had cooked for us and the salt rising bread and sweet cake that Grandma had made. The evening air was warm. Newly awakened frogs sang a cheeping song from a nearby creek. The wagon cover gleamed in the firelight. Rover lay curled between Lavina and me, his eyes alert as always, his head pressing against my knee. In spite of his warmth, I felt a little shiver of loneliness. It seemed strange to be outside beneath the dark sky and towering trees instead of inside our snug house. The sky with its faraway pinpoints of stars was so vast, and we were so small. Lavina seemed to feel it too. She was quiet, and Cynthia, who rarely sat still, rested sleepily in Mother's arms. John stared silently into the fire. Had he been missing his family, I wondered, as he ate his mother's chicken with the propped-up lid of the grub box for a table and an oxbow for a chair. Was he wishing now that he had never asked to go along? Then, all at once, Father began to sing in his deep, clear voice. It was one of the hymns that we often sang at the meeting house on Sunday mornings. My faith looks up to thee. After a minute, Mother joined in, then John in his uncertain, cracking voice, and then Lavina and I. As the last notes died away, Father said quietly, "You know, God is just as near to us here as he is at home." Leaning back on his elbows, he gazed up into the starry sky. "Look, girls," he said, pointing, "there is Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens. And near it, do you see 4 stars close together? That is Orion the hunter." "I see it," cried Lavina excitedly. "I see the brightest star." As I looked where Father's finger was pointing, it seemed to me that the stars had moved closer and that they were watching over us. A few minutes later, John left us to make up his bed in the tent. We changed into our nightclothes and climbed into our own strange new beds inside the wagon. It was crowded with trunks and barrels and the big wash tub hemming us in, Lavina's elbow poking into my back, and everyone's breathing all mixed up together. But it felt snug. "Good night, girls," came Father's soft, muffled voice. "Sleep well." I pulled Grandma's quilt close around me, thinking of her fingers darting in and out, making all of the hundreds of tiny stitches that held it together. "Good night," I answered. The last thing I saw before I closed my eyes was a sprinkling of stars shining through the round opening of the wagon cover. When I awoke the next morning, I smelled bacon frying. Father had already made a fire and gone with John to milk the cows. Mother was cooking breakfast, baking biscuits in the black iron Dutch oven set over the fire. "You can get dressed," she told me, "and then help your sisters get ready for breakfast. Quickly now. We want to make an early start." After breakfast, I washed the tin dishes while Lavina minded Cynthia. Mother strained milk, put up lunches for noon, and packed everything back into the wagon. Father and John pulled down the tent pole and carefully folded the tent. Then they yoked up the oxen, and once more we were on our way. The wagon rolled along, rocking and creaking. Father walked ahead next to the team while John drove the animals behind. Mother sat up on the spring seat, her back straight as always, her face shaded by her green lace-trimmed sunbonnet. Cynthia was next to her in the small padded box that Father had made, just big enough for her to play and sleep in. Lavina and I rode inside the wagon, the cover tied up at the sides so we could see out. The cool breeze rifled through our hair. For a while, we played with our dolls, dressing and undressing them with scraps of fabric. Lavina could entertain herself this way for hours, but after a little while, I grew restless. I hated sitting still. Excuse me. The oxen plodded so slowly, and there was nothing new to see, just the same winding road and the new green trees, dotted here and there with bursting blossoms, and small streams, and an occasional cabin, its chimney sending up a thin ribbon of smoke into the cloudless blue sky. Then I made a discovery. If I stepped out onto the brake block, I could jump down to the ground without the wagon stopping. This was a good game, I thought. Lavina, watch this, I called, climbing up to try it again. Mother turned around to look at me. Be careful of the wheels, she warned. I will be. I jumped free of them easily, but my heel caught in the hem of my blue flower sprig dress, and I heard a harsh ripping sound. It was only a tiny tear, I could see right away. Still, I could feel Mother frowning as I got quickly to my feet. She was always reminding me to be a lady. Why was that so important, I wondered. Why was it that most of the activities I thought were fun, like running and jumping, and climbing, were not considered ladylike? Sometimes I found myself wishing that I had been born a boy. Then I could have fun and not worry about skirts constantly getting in my way. It felt good to stretch my legs. I waved to John and he waved back, grinning. I walked along next to the wagon, stopping occasionally to pick an early spring flower or watch a bee buzzing in the grass or play a game of fetch with Rover. If the wagon got too far ahead, all I had to do was say, "Come on, Rover," and we ran for a few minutes to catch up. When we finally stopped late that afternoon, Father said, "We have come about 12 miles today." And Mary Ellen must have walked 6 of them. He smiled at me. "If you keep that up, you will walk halfway to Oregon." But after the 3rd day, the weather turned showery. Mother, who hated a mess, would not let me climb in and out of the wagon with muddy shoes, so I had to spend all of my time inside. Though I found it hard to sit still, Lavina and I thought of ways to amuse ourselves. We made up new games with our dolls and with a yarn ball that Mother had brought along. We read our books. We sang all the songs we could remember. Happy Day was our favorite, and we sang it in the loudest when it was raining the hardest. We brought Cynthia back with us and tried to teach her new words. "Gee, whoa, ha," she cried to the oxen in her tiny voice, making us laugh. Sometimes John rode up alongside the wagon, his long legs dangling down over Polly's round sides. "Hi there, Cynthia," he would call in his high-pitched voice. "Hi there, Don," she would answer in the exact same voice, and even Mother had to smile. Most nights we slept in the wagon, with John nearby in the tent. But once in a while, toward twilight, when the setting sun stole the warmth from the sky, we would come upon a farmhouse or a log cabin in the woods, and we would be invited to spend the night. It felt good to eat dinner on a real table in front of the blazing fireplace and sleep in real beds again. At these stops, everyone was anxious to know where we were going. When Father told them, they all seemed to have advice to offer. "Once you reach the wild prairies, you don't want to be traveling alone," cautioned one farmer, whose long, solemn face reminded me of George Kimball. "You still have over 2,000 miles of wilderness to go, you know. Your best bet is to wait in Independence for a wagon train to be made up and join with it." Okay, we're going to stop there. Your assignment for this read-along session read-aloud session is to go to the map that I sent you on Google Classroom and locate where they started, where the Todd family started, and then look at where Independence is and see how much of a distance there is. And then somehow let me know that you did that. So you can take a picture and send it. You can just message me somehow and say, I looked at the map. Anyway, be the first to do it. See you later. Bye.